Hey, everybody, welcome. Today we are talking hormones, and today we're going to be talking about what are signs of hormone imbalance at any age. Hey, everybody, welcome today to today's Autoimmune Table Talk. I'm Maggie MD, and I'm a functional and holistic medicine physician and creator of the Transform Protocol to transform autoimmune disease naturally. And one of the biggest hot topics in the Facebook group and in all our live training sessions is around the role of hormones. Hormones is a big deal, and this is for men and women. And many of you, I mean, how many of you guys in the audience right now, if you're watching right now, if you can tell me if you know that hormones has been a huge trigger of your autoimmune disease, or you know your hormone symptoms are a big deal in your health in general, can you type in the chat and just tell me a little bit about what some of the symptoms you already know are related to hormones that maybe even your physicians don't even believe it, and maybe people around you don't even believe it. If you could comment that in chat, that'd be great. And tell me a little bit about where you're watching from. If you can comment and let me know where you're watching from or what autoimmune struggles you struggle with, that's really great. I love talking with you, not at you. So it'll be really great if you guys can let me know where you're watching from. Give me a shout out. If you like our training sessions and you've loved our videos, give me a thumbs up right now. Give me a heart. If you know anybody that could benefit from learning about the hormones, whether it's your daughter, whether it's your sister, whether it's your mom, type their name in chat right now, because sharing is caring, and raising awareness around hormones and autoimmune issues as well is a big deal. And that's share the love. Type their name into chat right now. Today, let's talk quite a bit. You guys know that our program, Transform Autoimmune Disease Naturally, is the juggernaut in helping people turn around their autoimmunity, covering the 5 pillars of my Transform protocol. You also, many of you know already that hormone balance is the number one big first, usually the first pillar that I talk about. And those of you who are alumni in our programs who have successfully turned around your autoimmune disease, comment in chat. Tell people what turning around, balancing your hormones has meant in your health. Type in chat. The other thing is, there's many of you who've taken our program, My Hormone Masterclass. If all you're interested in is in turning around your hormones, My Hormone Masterclass is a great choice, right? And many of you are graduates of that program. And it's eye-opening, right? Just how important hormones are and how they actually can cause many symptoms that you don't even know are hormone related, are voila, related to the hormones. So how many of you would love to hear me go through what are the signs of hormone imbalance? And I'm going to start with the list with women. What are the signs of hormone imbalance in women at any age? Okay. If you would love me to talk about it, give me a shout out. Love it. Love the checklist idea. And I'm already going to give you guys an Easter egg and a heads up. I've just created a brand new guide. Seriously, a brand new guide on how to spot hormone imbalance at any age. That's bonus. All you have to do right now is comment in the comment section, me in chat, and then check your message request later, and we'll get that guide to you. This is going to be a full checklist guide, and my hormone balancing protocol is also in there as well. So if you want that guide, type me in the comment section right now. Okay. Now let's get started. When one of the first things we think about is, and remember this list, even though I'm going into age categories, I do want you to know that if you have been that age and that symptom occurred to you, that's a check in your checklist. All right. So I'm going to start with around puberty, age 10 to 18. And all of us who are older can identify with someone, even if you're not 10 to 18, you have a daughter who's 10 to 18, or you have been 10 to 18, think about these symptoms that are actually associated with hormone imbalance. First of all, how many of you around that age have irregular, frequent, or no periods? Okay. What about heavy, crampy periods? It's a sign of hormone imbalance. Okay. And then PMS. How many of you have suffered from PMS, irritability, moodiness, depression, anxiety, or even brain fog at that age, right? I remember for me as a teenager, that was one of the telltale signs that I didn't know back then, but now I know, was that I had never been anxious before. And suddenly right around 15, 16, anxiety became a big deal for me. So new onset of mental health symptoms around the teenage years is a surefire way to know that there's a hormone imbalance. Okay. And yeah, that looking back, clear as day, right? Now, what about skin changes, right? So, how many of you around that time had increased worsening of skin conditions like eczema, rashes, okay? Also, acne, right? Or redness, or some bumps around the outside of your arms, or infected hair follicles around the armpit, okay? Or the groin area, right? These are all symptoms clearly associated with a hormone problem, okay? And then what about oily skin? More oily skin. You never had oily skin before. Suddenly you start to have oily skin or you're seeing in your teenager. That is a big deal. Now, think about the diet of a teenager. Can our craving for sugar and the types of food that we crave change with hormones? All of you that have been pregnant already know the answer is hell yes. Well, that happened even when we were a teenager. So when your hormones change, instantly you'll start noticing that your teens become, even if they weren't before, carbaholics. Okay, do they have sugar cravings? Do they become the carbaholics, right? Are there stronger food preferences or aversions, right? These are signs that there's hormonal shifts that's happening in someone who is between the age of 10 and 18. Now, what about now sleep changes? Okay, how many, you think that it's just natural for a lot of teenagers to be night owls, but that's not necessarily true. A lot of that is hormonal. And we know it's hormonal for our teenagers where they start having insomnia at night because we know it happens to us around perimenopause. Suddenly we have insomnia, and it's not like because we're night owls, we sure as hell want to go to sleep, but there are hormone changes that's triggering the insomnia. So onset of insomnia, trouble falling asleep, trouble staying asleep are clear signs that there is big hormonal imbalances that are happening. Because again, not everybody going through hormone changes feel crappy. Why do some people feel worse than others? It's because there's an imbalance in these hormones. Okay. So that's what I'm talking about. What are signs that this isn't happening in the right way? And there's an imbalance in these hormones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, your adrenal hormones. What's happening, right? There's an imbalance. Now, think about also, a lot of people don't think bowel symptoms are related with hormones, and they freaking are. So, how many of you remember, and I remember this for myself as well, that chronic constipation, diarrhea, stomach upset, heartburn, bloating. Okay, how many of you had those symptoms when you were a teenager or are seeing it in your teen? Type it in the chat right now. Okay, go ahead, type that in the chat right now because ding, 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 ding. Because do you know that hormone changes totally affects bowel symptoms? So a lot of times in the medical world, we call it like irritable bowel syndrome or something. And do you know that how many of you out there with irritable bowel syndrome knows at certain times of the month, it gets a lot worse than other times? If there's no hormone influence, why would that happen? Why would it worsen certain times of every month? Because there's totally a link between the hormone balance and the way the smooth muscle in your intestines even work. Yeah. And do you know there's even fluctuations in the gut bacteria certain times of the month that's based on hormonal shifts? So there's a lot of underlying triggers that's triggering even bowel symptoms in your teenagers, okay? And even when you were a teenager. Now, weight fluctuations. How many of you suddenly lost a lot of weight? Most of us gained a lot of weight sometime around 10 to 18. That dramatic weight shift absolutely can be a sign of hormone imbalance and even thyroid hormone imbalance. So weight fluctuations, don't think it's just because, oh, they became a carbaholic and they gain weight. Well, why is this? Some people can eat a ton of carbs and other people don't, and they still gain weight. How many people just look at grass and they can gain weight? If that's you, that's hormones. That's not because you have a vision problem absorbing grass through your eyes. There really is a problem with hormones where some people will even look at grass and they'll gain weight. If that's you, type it in the chat right now. Now, breast tenderness, monthly breast tenderness is a really clear sign, and that can happen at any age. But young adults, young girls would notice that with breast tenderness, nuance that they didn't have it before. That can be a problem. Now, here's something that I want you guys, even thinking about yourself and thinking about your kids. If there is a family history of autoimmune disease, anybody in the family with autoimmune disease, okay, the likelihood that this 10 to 18-year-old is having hormonal imbalance goes up like fivefold from what I've seen. So pretty much when we work with clients in my hormone masterclass, or we work with clients in the Transform Autoimmune program, the likelihood that they're telling me their daughters have the same symptoms or worse is 100%. I've never seen it not happen because these things are hereditary. And there's a lot about autoimmunity and the genetics related to it that makes our girls more prone to having the same hormonal problems we did. This is why you have a special responsibility here. This isn't just about you, me, and us middle-aged women, right? We have a ton in the other generation below us that really is depending on us to learn this knowledge so we can intervene and help so the same thing doesn't happen for them, right? This kind of suffering doesn't have to continue. The other thing is, in this population, if you can balance our hormones early, what's the likelihood that's going to trigger autoimmune disease? Because as many of you already know, what happens is these big hormone fluctuations from high to low, low to high, these big fluctuations is a very hormonally vulnerable time to trigger the onset or the worsening of autoimmunity. So I'm just curious if you're in the audience right now and you know that your autoimmune issues started when you were a teenager, type it into chat. And even better yet, are some of the symptoms I just said resonating with you, that they were even there and that they were the signs of hormone imbalance that is related with why your autoimmunity got worse? Type it in the chat. Because you know what? I love when people say, you're right, Dr. Maggie, because here's the thing. That's what happened to me. So I can't make this stuff up because that's exactly my personal experience. That's also my experience dealing with thousands of people with autoimmunity and dealing with their daughters with autoimmunity. These are our personal histories, and these are the histories we're seeing repeat itself in our children. So that covers the age of 10 to 18. Was that helpful so far? And if there was a big aha in there, go ahead and type it in the chat, because a lot of people don't realize, like insomnia, weight changes. Oh, and I didn't even mention headaches and cyclical migraines. How many of you started as teenagers with that? Sign of huge hormonal imbalance and a big trigger of autoimmunity as well. So headaches, cyclical migraines, big part of this in this age group as well. So that really wraps up our section for 10 to 18-year-olds, all right? And I hope that that's giving you guys a lot of ahas, not only in you, but in your kids. Now, let's go to our next group. Now, if you've already had those symptoms and your checklist is already off the chain, with that, you already know you have hormone imbalance, right? Now, next, we're going to go on what are the signs of hormone imbalance in someone who's 19 to 35, young adult, okay? Young adult, 19 to 35. And if you have been 19 to 35 and you've been a teenager, this next list also applies to you. Anybody who's been aged 19 to 35, let's talk through what are some of these additional symptoms that crop up at that time. That's like ding, 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 winner, chicken dinner, that there is a hormone imbalance problem. Number one, fertility issues. It's crazy to me how many people with fertility issues out there really don't understand that there are certain hormonal imbalances that could be happening in them or in their partner that's triggering this fertility issue. And the way that we care about infertility is really in a lot of ways, we give medication to force an ovulation rather than fixing the underlying hormone imbalances that's causing you not to ovulate or keep a pregnancy. So one of the number one causes of fertility issues and miscarriages is another sign of hormone abnormality. It's actually low progesterone. Yet so many people don't even know that, and even their doctors don't know that. So that is fertility issues and miscarriages is clearly a sign of hormone imbalance. And do you know that most infertility issues and miscarriages are related to women and men with autoimmunity? There's a huge autoimmune link to fertility issues and miscarriages. Is that ringing a bell with anybody? And type in the chat if that's happened to you and no one even mentioned that there's an autoimmune link or there's a hormone balancing link, something that you can do to actually fix this problem. Type it in the chat right now. We're fresh off the water challenge and I am drinking my water, everybody. I hope you guys are as well. Also, now, if you're able to get pregnant and you deliver a baby, how many of you have had postpartum issues? Okay, think about this. How many of you had postpartum depression, postpartum hair loss, postpartum weight gain that can't be shed, right? And postpartum thyroiditis. How many of you remember this history? Okay, I did. Did anyone tell me that was from a hormone imbalance that's fixable? No. And the other thing is, no one even told me it was autoimmune. And I can tell you right now, if you can pick up those signs at that time of fertility issues, miscarriages, postpartum, you can beat the diagnosis of autoimmune disease by 10, 20 years if you knew it was autoimmune related. And it is a fixable problem. You can fix hormone imbalances, which decreases the risk of autoimmunity. Yeah, I know, right? And those of you, if you had known that back then, wouldn't have that been great? And now you're looking at your daughters and you're like, I see that in her now. yeah, you can intervene here. This is a really important checklist to share with them. If you want a copy of this checklist, type me into chat right now, into the comment section, and then check your message requests later. And we would have sent you a message on getting this bonus guide with the full checklist here and what to do about it. All right. Now, I want to actually, again, I have just talked about how postpartum, a lot of people are diagnosed with low thyroid, right? But did you know that at any time in your life, if you have a new diagnosis of low thyroid, that is a huge warning sign and a huge obvious sign that there's a hormone imbalance. Thyroid is just one hormone. There are other hormones like your ovarian hormones, adrenal hormones, brain hormones, pancreas hormones. Okay. And did you know that most low thyroid are actually already autoimmune? And when your cells mistake your thyroid cells as a germ, what's it like? It's also going to attack your ovary cells, your adrenal cells, your pancreas cells, and your brain cells that make hormones. 100%. People in my programs know this. So anybody who gets diagnosed with a new diagnosis of low thyroid or high thyroid, the likelihood that this is completely related to other hormone imbalances are like sky high. And if someone's telling you no, it doesn't, it's because they don't know how to evaluate it. Okay. Because it does. 100%. Okay. And people in programs, how many of you in our programs have learned that your Hashimoto's or your Graves was completely related to other hormone patterns of total, utter hormone chaos and that they're completely linked? Type in the chat. I'd love for alumni to share some of your insight that your thyroid and your other hormones were totally linked. There are signs that are warning about each other. So I would love if some alumni could comment on that. All right. Now, the other thing is, a lot of people don't realize that diabetes is a hormone disorder and it's an autoimmune disease. Ding, 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 ding. So how many of you have a new diagnosis of prediabetes or diabetes? How many of you have mothers or dads with diabetes? That's a hormone disorder. Okay. That's an autoimmune hormonal disorder. And so new diagnosis of prediabetes and diabetes is the clear sign there are other hormone disorders, period. Lisa says me. Leslie says me. Right. I don't make this stuff up, right? And so ding, 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 ding. I wish when I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes during both of my pregnancies where I needed insulin, somebody told me that it was related with autoimmunity and that I would be at risk later on to develop all these other autoimmune diagnoses. But the truth is, none of my doctors knew. I didn't know as a doctor. And even now, doctors don't know. So I wish the message could get out there that anybody with new diabetes, gestational diabetes, pre-diabetes, big hormonal problem, big autoimmune issue. And it's an early warning sign. Actually, I would even say it's a late warning sign. There's even a shitstorm coming right after that of more and more autoimmunity. So how important is that sign? So I hope this is resonating with you. Ding, ding, ding. Now, hair changes. We've mentioned that in young adults that there could be some hair follicle changes. In the middle age category, hair loss. So what you see is thinning of the hair. Okay. You can even have spots of hair loss. Overall, like even hair changes where the quality of your hair changes, the consistency, breaking, the shine in your hair. A lot of these hair changes are, guess what? Completely related with hormones. So when you see a lot of hair changes, and how many of you have had hair changes? I mean, I've seen a lot of people comment in Facebook about hair loss. Nikki, one of our alumni with who has struggled with Hashis, had like almost no hair around here. And she's showing us a picture just a year later, just how much hair grew back. That's by balancing her hormones. Okay. Hair loss has a huge hormonal component. Okay. If you have suffered from hair loss, type hair loss down below. We actually also have a hair loss guide. So if you're interested in the hair loss guide, type in the chat right now, hair loss guide. You can write that as well in the chat below. All right. Now, what about, we talked about bowel problems. A lot of us as teenagers, people will say, oh, you just have some bowel problems, but it's middle age when we get diagnosed, labeled like irritable bowel syndrome, chronic constipation, or just diarrhea or anxiety. These new diagnoses of these bowel symptoms, guess what? All hormonally related, because a lot of us think about when you had IBS when you were in your 20s and 30s, and even now, don't they get worse certain times of the month? So yeah, and it's around 18 to 35 that we get these diagnoses. And you even have diagnoses of like heartburn, okay, indigestion, bloating. These gut changes are completely related with hormone changes that are happening. So there's no way that you can actually fix these problems unless you truly are really looking at hormones. Those are hormone related symptoms as well. Now, also around this age group, we get diagnosed finally with things like fibroids, endometriosis, and adenomyosis with our heavy periods. Teenagers, they're just heavy periods. Now we're getting serious because now we get ultrasounds that are showing that there's like polycystic ovarian disease, cysts on our ovaries, tumors in our fibroids, and we have crazy endometriosis, which is the thickening of the lining in the uterus. All these are signs that there's a huge hormone imbalance, especially between estrogen and progesterone. But there could be also testosterone levels could be feeding this and fueling this whole process, along with thyroid and adrenals. So guess what? These signs are clearly with fibroids, endometriosis, adenomyosis. You got hormone imbalances, and you better deal with that now, or you'll end up with a hysterectomy like all the women before you in your family. Most hysterectomies are actually medically unnecessary, but they're the only option that you have most of the time when you go see a gynecologist. Well, I'm here to tell you, recognize these signs as a major hormone imbalance that is fixable. So check that checkbox, right? And then chronic fatigue, right? Chronic fatigue. How many of you suffered with chronic fatigue, went in and saw your doctor, and then they do labs and say your labs are normal? Yeah, sure. Your regular 3-4 labs are normal. That don't mean your hormone patterns are normal. Okay. Fatigue is a huge sign that's related with hormone imbalance. And even more, if you have fatigue that cycles with certain times of the month, totally related with hormone imbalance as well. So chronic fatigue must be taken really seriously. Cyclical monthly fatigue should also be taken really seriously as a sign of hormone imbalance. Now, cardiac stuff. Okay. How many of you notice certain times of the month the anxiety gets worse, or you actually have palpitations? Your heart rate is running, or you actually feel like your heart is skipping beats. Okay. Or you actually, when you're sleeping, you could hear like loud swishing noise in your ear. You could tell your heart's racing, right? And it literally feels like certain times that your heart is going so fast. Sometimes you even get dizzy. Okay. Dizziness with this. Sometimes in severe cases, people will be diagnosed with an autoimmune, with a mystery illness called POTS, which by the way, it's autoimmune related. But anyway, these heart symptoms of palpitations, anxious feeling, tightness around the chest is actually not all in your head and because you're cray-cray, because you're not. They're related with hormonal changes. And certain times of the month, they get worse. So there are heart changes, heart muscle changes, heartbeat rhythm changes that are associated with hormone imbalance. Check that box. Okay. And then what about pain? Do you guys think that there is a link with pain or chronic pain of any type with hormones? And those of you who have chronic pain, you tell me in chat, do you notice that there's a hormonal link to pain, either cyclical, certain times of the month, or right around menopause, your pain got way worse, or you just delivered a baby and now the pain is way worse. And you know that these hormone changes is associated with this pain. Type it in the chat right now, because I don't make this up. And this happened to me around, I hit early menopause at 36, and which I later figured out was autoimmune. I managed to completely balance my hormones, come out of menopause, hallelujah, because it was an autoimmune process. My ovaries weren't dead. Yeah. Anyway, when I came out of menopause around 38, from 38 to 48, I was menstruating regularly and my hormones were back. I was not in menopause, by the way. And finally, at 48, when I went into menopause the second time, really gracefully, thank you very much, what I found during that time was my pain level went through the roof. My fibromyalgia, my mixed connective tissue went way worse. So is it because I'm nuts and I'm getting old? Come on, I'm 48. I'm not 88. So there absolutely is worsening of pain. That's not because menopause cuckoo. It's because of the changes of hormones during premenopause and during menopause and after menopause. Is this making sense to you? So chronic pain is a hormonally linked issue, period. I want to make sure you guys know that. I'm going in a lot of depth and I'm providing a lot of value. I'm hoping that this is resonating and validating for you. What you're experiencing and what you know is true is freaking real. Okay. I hope you know that. Okay. And this is what I hear over and over again when people are in my hormone mass class. They're like, I knew it. And then they actually see the data from the class, their own hormone data that reaffirms their symptom. And then they also go through the training modules and they meet with me and they're like, wow, This is like confirmation of everything I've always knew, but now I know is true. It's like gaining that self-trust and confidence again about their hormones and being able to turn it around, not just for themselves, but for their daughters as well. Like this is a big deal. So chronic pain, palpitations. Now, fat. Let's talk about fat, right? So there's gaining weight, but I know that in middle age and even later that the distribution of where the fat is something to think about. Okay. So if there is trunkal weight gain right in the middle of the trunk, okay, that is estrogen weight. That is a hormone imbalance weight. And that's the kind of people that look at grass and still gain weight and can't lose it worth shit. And that's because nobody's addressing the underlying hormone imbalance. And to me, it's not because you're weak, it's because the underlying hormone imbalance just haven't been identified, addressed. You haven't been taught about this. Okay. I love that. Lisa Morgan saying, Jeepers, this is so right on. Thank you. So this is really my own personal experience and really helping thousands of people balance their hormones, what I've noticed. Okay. So I'm really glad that this is resonating with you. Now, finally, around the age of 19 to 35, if you're diagnosed with any autoimmune disease, including diabetes, everybody, and including these mystery illnesses now that we know is autoimmune, we're talking fibromyalgia, IBS, POTS, you name it. All of these, if you were diagnosed with new onset of any autoimmune disease between the age of 19 and 35, you got jacked up hormones. Because remember, I told you hormones is one of the major triggers of this, okay? So one of the major triggers of autoimmunity. So any new diagnosis, we know your hormones are jacked, okay? So that's an indirect evidence that something with the hormones caused this to happen right now. Is that resonating with anyone? And is this ringing true for everybody? I hope that it is. So that's my middle age additional symptoms of hormone imbalance. I hope that was super helpful. Now, last but not least, the majority of our audience, including moi, is a woman over 35. So a woman over 35, what are some possible additional symptoms of hormone imbalance? That's like a red flag, red alert. You got to do something about this. Would be, well, I really want to actually bring it back to the distribution of fat. That's a big deal. If the fat is right in the middle, okay, despite exercise, no matter what you're eating, whatever, that is estrogen problems. That is a hormone imbalance. And it becomes a worse problem when we're 35 and older. Okay. So that is definitely something I want you, no matter like at what age that happens, that is a clear warning bell, big problem. And that fat in the trunk is a really big problem because it is also, the fat is where you store excess hormones and where you store your toxins. And so there's a lot of inflammation factors live in your fat cells. So if you increase your body weight by 10% and it's all sitting in that area as fat, you're basically upping the storage load of toxins, hormones, like crazy, and inflammatory factors like crazy. So it literally is the kerosene lighting the suffering fire under your body is everything that's stored in that area. And that's hormonally related. So do you have to balance your hormones to fix toxicity, hormones, inflammation? Yes, you do, right? So that's an underlying factor. Now, hot flashes, all right? And hot flashes doesn't have to be at night. Hot flashes can be anytime during the day. How many of you get hot flashes in the morning or get hot flashes in the afternoon? How many of you get hot flashes after you eat? Okay, you didn't have that before. Why do you have that now? Okay, because there is definitely some blood sugar changes that are associated with these hormone changes that triggers hot flashes. So hot flashes anytime of the day can happen, and they don't have to feel hot. You could suddenly be drenched in sweat, and that's another symptom. Brain fog. Brain fog at any age, male or female, is a big red flag for hormone imbalance because our brain actually requires proper levels of hormones to function properly. You suddenly, around 45, you're going through perimenopause, you can't remember worth anything, and you're struggling with memory when you're an accountant and you've never had this problem before. You're struggling to remember a birthday. That's not because you went stupid all of a sudden. Okay, that's because your hormones suck. Your hormones are imbalanced, not because you're in balance. Your hormones are out of balance, not because you're not because you just went down. It did not happen that way. Now, vaginal changes I want to talk about. So vaginally, there can be changes in the dryness in the area, in how the area feels. The mucosal membranes in the vaginal area is really fueled by hormone balance. So if there's an imbalance in the area, the skin, the mucosa around the vagina can really thin, making sex painful. Okay. And that being said, vaginal dryness can change. The thinness and thickness of the mucosa can change. The way that sexual response is can be different. It could take much longer to get there and it can be weaker than it used to be. Clearly, signs hormonally that's a problem. And then also vaginal discharge could also change, whether in the color, odor, or amount, lubrication. There are big changes with that. Vaginal changes. And along with that, think about other types of changes in the area, any sort of pelvic floor changes. So if you have a bladder problem, like you gotta go, or you're cough and sneeze and there's peeing, like these hormones affect the musculature in that area and also helps modulate the urge to pee. So any of that we call urge, or we call it stress incontinence, is a sign of hormone imbalance. Pelvic floor disorders as well. So there's a lot of things that's happening in that female area. There's a lot of hormone stuff happening in that area that is out of balance. Okay. Sex drive. Changing in sex drive is a sign, male and female, that there's hormone changes as well. So loss of libido, change in libido for women, signs of hormone imbalance as well. Now, interestingly, we've already talked about craving for sugar, and we see that obviously many of us have craving for sugar, especially as young teenagers, but also young adults. Teenagers, we see the biggest change to that, where people become carboholics. It can also happen around perimenopause as well. Some people will have extreme craving for sugar, and they didn't even like sugar to begin with, right? So interestingly, though, something else happens besides craving for sugar. So if you start craving a lot of salt, that is a sign of hormone imbalance. Typically, a lot of adrenal hormone imbalances. So don't take craving for salt lightly. That's also a sign that there are hormonal changes. If you guys think about this is why pregnant women get all these weird cravings, because our taste buds are actually completely affected by hormone changes, whether it's because you're pregnant or you just delivered a baby, or whether it's a certain time of the month, or whether you're perimenopausal. It really changes how you taste and what you crave. So that can happen at any age. I want you guys to know that. Now, here's some really big hidden signs of hormone changes for the middle-aged woman. How many of you have pain in this area right here? Okay, which is right below your ribs on the right. That's where your liver is. And liver is the place where a lot of hormones are being made and broken down. A lot of toxins are being broken down there. And unfortunately, when we have these hormone imbalances, it can lead to a condition called fatty liver, or liver congestion, or liver toxicity. So many of us with these hormone imbalances are starting to have pain in the right upper side of your abdomen. That's a sign of some liver issues that's being triggered and fueled by hormone changes. How many of you have been told that was fine, no problem, it's in your head, no big deal, that you have this abdominal pain? Type it in chat right now. It's hormonal, okay? So balancing your hormones is going to make a big difference. Mandy says me. Lisa says yes, right? I mean, I can't make, D says me. That you're not crazy. You don't have to take Prozac because you have this imaginary pain, because this pain ain't imaginary. It's your hormones and it's your liver, and it's real, and you can fix it. You can turn it around, okay? And so that liver. The other thing is, what's close to the liver is all your intestines. Digestion problems. Do you notice how many of you are starting to notice you are having some digestion problems you never did before? Like where you eat food and you get bloated. How many of you during the water challenge, drinking water got you bloated? That's a sign you have a digestion problem, by the way. And so digestion problems, whether it's low stomach acid, pancreatic enzyme digestion, or fat digestion with your gallbladder, hormone changes can cause some big swings in your digestion. So you may not have had those problems before, but all of a sudden you do. There's a reason why pregnant women are at higher risk for gallbladder problems, because the hormone changes actually make their gallbladder function less well. So if that happens while you're pregnant, can't that happen at all the rest of the times in your life? Yeah. There's a reason why the most common person to get their gallbladder removed is a 45-year-old woman. Hormones. All right. So digestion problems can be related with hormone imbalances and changes as well. Wow. Now the list is adding up. You're like, I have the encyclopedia of hormone imbalances. Yeah. This is really being missed. Someone just said, major problem with digestion. My God, you got hormone problems, Jillian. Someone else just said, like, me, ding, 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 digestions, bloating all the way, right? Now, what about stool changes, right? And some people even have liver enzymes. Joanne just says, my liver enzymes are high. You don't even, that's a late sign. How many of you are told your liver enzymes are fine, so you don't have a liver problem? BS. Anyway, we're waiting for the late signs of liver damage to say you have a liver problem. That's where current medical care really is. And I'm telling you right now, let's get ahead of it 5 years earlier, 10 years earlier, 20 years earlier. And in the case of your kids, why don't we do it 30, 40 years earlier to prevent that problem in the first place? So yes, it can absolutely affect digestion, liver health. Now, changes in your stool. So if you're suddenly getting more constipated, more loose stool, changes in the odor of your stool, guess what? Hormonal swings. Hormonal swings can affect the gut bacteria, which can impact on the quality and smell and consistency and everything in your stool. So yeah, it's not just in your head, your cuckoo. Your stool is an indicator of your hormonal health. Yeah. And believe it or not, the large bacteria in your intestine actually is what is needed for the second phase of breaking down hormones and removing them from your body. So if you got bad bacteria, not enough good bacteria in there, guess what happens? You don't break down these hormones. You don't take it out of your body. Toxic hormone breakdown products recircle in your body the whole time. Is the loop. You're absorbing toxins from your poop and recircling it all over your blood over and over again. Yeah, this is why so many of you drinking water during the water challenge, suddenly you're like, I'm having bowel movements every day. And suddenly my abdominal pain is gone. My stool is changing, all this stuff. There's a link. All this stuff is connected. I know it feels like magic, but it really isn't. It's just I see connections that other people don't see. That's really what it is. That's why Mandy said, I've been drinking a lot of water and I'm not feeling the abdominal pain anymore. Yeah, because when you hydrate properly, you actually can have a normal bowel movement every day. You also affect the gut flora. You actually get rid of your hormones and toxins every day to promote a healthy environment instead of the recycling of the toxins in your gut. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I teach in all our programs. Yeah. Does it make sense now that you're learning the why about this? Now, finally, I have two last symptoms that has to do with hormone imbalance in someone who is 35 and older. And that would be, how many of you have osteopenia, osteoporosis? Told you have thin bones and told that, oh, it's a calcium problem and all this stuff. Well, there's a big hormonal component and a big digestion component actually to osteoporosis and osteopenia. So what I'm going to tell you is that osteopenia or osteoporosis isn't just about go ahead and take Fosamax, take some calcium and you're good. You got to look at what's going on with your hormones and balance them. And I've seen numbers really reverse and improve. How many of you have seen your osteopenia, osteoporosis number improve? Guess what? Happens all the time in the program because you know why? People fix the root causes, hormones. Okay. Now, finally, the last but not least, big thing that I want to emphasize is any of you that have worsening autoimmune disease at any time. Okay. You got RA. It was no big deal. All of a sudden now it's a big deal and you don't know why. What changed? It's not because you're getting older. It's because your hormones are changing. And so anytime someone has worsening autoimmune disease, male or female, 100% they have a hormone imbalance that needs to get addressed. So ding, 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 ding. Okay. That is the list for people that are 35 and older that have a hormone imbalance. I'm just going to ask you guys right now, based on what you guys heard, how many of you want the guide? How many of you want the guide to actually download this whole checklist so you can check everybody in your family? You can also go through and check yourself at any age where you were at. And make sure that you have it on paper and it's real that you have hormone imbalances and it's a big part of what's triggering all these symptoms. Type me in chat or I want the hormone guide in chat and check your messages a little bit later in your message request and our team will send you the information to get the guide downloaded. Type it in chat. But how many of you is this validating everything that you have already thought was hormone related and you're just like, I knew it had to do with hormones, but no one believed me, even your doctors. How many of this is validating the experiences that you've had? Type in the chat. Wow, there's a lot of you that are saying this. Me. I like it. Someone just said I had a lot of abdominal pain as a kid. Pediatrician said it was because of sinus drainage. No. My liver enzymes were high. Lisa said water gave me heartburn. That's a sign you have a digestion problem. Okay, so it's a major clue, right? Someone else is bloated with everything. Someone else says my liver enzymes are elevated, had all kinds of tests done. Liver enzymes went down on their own and then Called it good, right? Yeah, liver enzymes can go up and down, but they shouldn't go up at all unless there's a serious issue. So what do? Wait till they're permanently up, which is a sign of permanent damage, and then we say, "Oh, now you have a liver problem. Now you have a hormone problem." Nope, nope, nope. The whole thing here is I wanted to provide you guys this checklist so that you guys can actually have what's right in front of you, all the things that are related to hormone imbalances. And then what the hell can you do about it? So what I'd love to do is I'm just going to highlight a couple things, which is number one is that my hormone masterclass. Okay. Currently that class is for women of any age. And that program, my hormone masterclass, is extremely popular. Those of you in the Facebook group have seen all the testimonials from people who've taken the program. The program includes a test kit that we send out to your home to test your hormones. Number two is you also get education modules. So you understand from me modules to learn all these connections and the why. Because doesn't this make logical sense, right? So I love putting these things together that people don't see. It's almost like there's a whole different system of connection that regular conventional doctors just don't think about. And even functional doctors, if they are not a specialist in autoimmunity like I am, it's hard for people to put all these pieces together into something that's like, this is how it's linked with this hormone change, that happens, and that happens. So I like putting these concepts together in video modules. And then finally, in my hormone masterclass, it currently does contain a consultation with me as well. So that's my hormone masterclass. And if you want more information on my hormone masterclass, the guide has a ton of information about that, but you can also go to myhormonemasterclass.com, or you can even put hormone class info in the comment section, and our team will message you. Finally, hormones is just one of the biggest trigger of autoimmune disease. If you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's not just hormones, but now I understand. She mentioned blood sugar. She mentioned skin changes. She mentioned infection in the gut. She mentioned food. She mentioned thyroid. All these problems is all what's I know is triggering my autoimmunity. That's what I've called the Transform 5 Pillars protocol. So if you want to know like how I put this together, like not just the hormone piece, but the food mapping and gut healing and all these pieces together as the base of the foundation of what's triggering the autoimmunity, it's called the 5 Pillars training. If you're interested in learning more about the 5 Pillars training, put the 5 Pillars training in the comment section and then check your message request later. A member of our team will get that training to you. That'll be great. So those are just some of the things that you can do to learn more about how hormones fit in with the 5 Pillars training. You could find more information in my Hormone Masterclass. What I was thinking about is I would like next week, Easter egg, okay, everybody. Next week on next week's Autoimmune Table Talk, I'm going to go over what is a hormone balancing starter pack. What are some things that you can do now? Okay. What would be a starter plan for balancing my hormones naturally right now that I can do? If you're interested in doing that, definitely ask for the guide right now. Send me the hormone guide right now. I want the hormone guide in the comment section because I have information in there as well. But next week, I'm going to go step by step on what is a starter plan for balancing your hormones naturally. All right. So if you're interested in that, make sure you tune in next week, and also make sure you download the guide because I go through what is a starter plan for balancing your hormones. Who doesn't want that? And then finally, I'm not going to exclude men out of here. I'm just going to let you guys know that in the checklist guide is a whole checklist for men. Bonus, a whole checklist for men and male hormone symptoms. And I can tell you right now, that's going to be a shocker. I can tell you right now, the most underserved population we have on hormone balancing is actually men. So because the doctor's profession actually really almost discriminates against men asking for hormone testing or asking for information for hormones. It's almost like any man who asks about hormones is only interested in bodybuilding, which isn't the case. So I have done tons of videos on men and autoimmunity. And if you're interested in men and autoimmunity, more information on men and autoimmunity, type it in chat right now. I would love to learn more about, is it your son? Is it your husband? Is this a friend of yours? Because male hormones is the biggest trigger of autoimmune disease, and many of the symptoms around men's health, the root cause is actually a hormone imbalance. So that checklist is also in this guide. So help the man in your life by asking for that guide in the comment section. That'll be really awesome. So yeah, this is really great. Thank you for all these comments. I'm just gonna, what is the Easter egg about? I just told you, woman. And in the hormone guide, there's also an Easter egg as well. So if you want to see, there's actually some Easter egg bonus information in the hormone guide. So ask for the hormone guide. That'll be in the chat. That'll be really great, and we'll get that to you. All right, everybody, that was really awesome. I know that I went long. That was like 45 minutes of packed information. And that's literally less than 1% of what I do in our programs, my Hormone Masterclass or our main program, Transform Autoimmune Disease Naturally. If you're interested in attacking all 5 pillars of Transform Autoimmune Disease Naturally, we're going to put a link right here in the comment section where you can chat our team. So the best thing you can do is chat our team if you're interested in even the hormone class or you're interested in our Transform Autoimmune main program. Just go ahead and click the link that's in the comment section, and I believe it's in the top or bottom of this guide too. There's a link to chat our team. Go ahead and click the link and chat our team to learn more about our Transform Autoimmune main program. Otherwise, I think that's going to be a wrap. And give me a second. Let's take a look. I think that's a wrap. And what I love to do is make sure you check your message request inbox on Facebook in a couple hours, and you'll get a message from our team to get some of those guides to you guys. All right, everybody. I hope this was helpful for you. I'd love for you to write your one big aha in comment section, just so I know that you got something out of this, and to encourage me to do more next week. So next week, I'm going to go over what are the things that you can do to start balancing your hormones. All right, everybody. That's a wrap. Have a great afternoon.